In the parched town of Copper Bend, the sun beat down relentlessly, casting a harsh light on a community struggling to survive. Dust swirled in the streets, carried by a weary wind that whispered tales of hardship and despair. The townsfolk, worn by years of drought and economic strife, moved about with a palpable tension that hung in the air like the heat. At the heart of this discontent were the land barons, powerful men who wielded their wealth and influence like a sledgehammer, eager to crush anyone who dared to challenge their grip on the land. The barons had long viewed Copper Bend as their domain, dismissing the needs of its residents in favor of their own insatiable ambitions. With every passing year, they tightened their hold, buying out small farms and ranches, forcing families into submission or out of town altogether. They owned most of the fertile land surrounding Copper Bend, but there was one prize they couldn't control: Delilah Ward's ranch. Delilah stood as a beacon of what was left, a fiercely independent spirit rooted in her father's legacy. As she looked out across the sun-bleached horizon, she felt both pride and apprehension. The ranch, once bustling with life and laughter under her father's guidance, now echoed with challenges that would test her resolve. Though society dictated that women could not own property without a husband or have a voice in legal matters, Delilah was undeterred. With each passing day, it became clearer: the law might dictate her fate, but it wouldn't define her spirit. She resolved to fight for what was hers, not just with grit and courage, but with an unwavering determination to reclaim her family's honor amidst the looming threats from those who believed power could extinguish her flame. As Delilah stood at the threshold of the ranch, a wave of emotions washed over her: grief, pride, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. The ranch was more than just land. It was a living tapestry woven from her father's sweat, unyielding spirit, and countless memories shared. Each weathered fence post and barn door held whispers of his teachings, lessons imparted in moments of labor and love. He had always told her that strength was not merely about resilience in the face of adversity. It was about standing firmly for what you believed in, no matter how formidable the challenge. In those early days, they would work side by side, tending to the fields and animals, his voice a steady guiding hand amid the tough labor of ranch life. He instilled in her the belief that courage was born from conviction, and that being a woman did not diminish her worth or capability. Time spent in those sun-soaked fields had left an indelible mark on her soul, shaping her into the fiercely independent woman she had become. Now, as she surveyed the expansive land that belonged to her, a feeling of profound purpose ignited within her. Her father's absence hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the battles he had fought against an unfair world. With this inheritance came not just property, but a legacy she would honor by defending their shared dream. Yet doubt seeped into her thoughts like the cracks forming in the parched earth. Was she truly ready to uphold the legacy he left behind? As she tightened her grip on her father's old gun belt, she felt his presence fortifying her determination. Delilah knew that this was no longer about merely preserving a ranch. It was about reclaiming their story against those who sought to rewrite it. As Delilah fortified her resolve, shadows loomed over Copper Bend in the form of the land barons, men whose names were etched in fear and authority throughout the region. They moved with a swagger born from wealth, their eyes glinting with ruthless ambition as they surveyed the land for which they had no rightful claim but felt entitled to nonetheless. To them, Delilah's inherited ranch was nothing more than another notch on their belts, another trophy to be wrested from the hands of someone they deemed inferior. Leading the charge was Silas Crane, a formidable figure known for his cutthroat tactics and cold demeanor. Silas had long viewed Delilah's father as an obstacle to his insatiable appetite for land, a man who had thwarted his plans for expansion time and again. Now, with her father's passing, Silas saw an opportunity to reclaim what he believed belonged to him. He would stop at nothing to see Delilah cowed or expelled from the land, employing lawyers as mercenaries to wage a war of attrition while parading their legal dominance. Beside him were his allies, men who shared his vision of power and control, each eager to exploit the vulnerabilities in a system that systematically marginalized women like Delilah. They thrived on intimidation, ready to wield both legal threats and brute force against anyone who dared to resist their whims. Unbeknownst to them, however, Delilah was not merely a pawn in their game. Her spirit ignited by her father's teachings, she was prepared to confront this oppressive force head-on. As gossip swirled through Copper Bend about the impending confrontation, the air thickened with tension. setting the stage for a clash that would determine not only Delilah's fate but also the very soul of the town itself. In the harsh landscape of Copper Bend, Delilah Ward faced the oppressive weight of not just her inheritance, but also the societal norms that stripped women of their rights. The law was unyielding, declaring that women could neither own property without a husband nor testify in court. It was a system designed to subjugate and silence those who dared to challenge male authority. As the town whispered tales of corrupt barons and greedy patriarchs, Delilah felt the confines of tradition threatened to squeeze the life out of her dreams. But Delilah was resolute. Bound by her father's lessons on strength and resilience, she refused to accept a fate dictated by outdated laws that belittled her worth. Each morning, as she stepped onto her family land, she pondered the relentless injustice around her, a reality from which so many women suffered in silence. The limitations imposed on them were insidious, stretching beyond legal restrictions into the very fabric of their existence, warping how they viewed themselves and their potential. Delilah envisioned a new narrative, one where a woman could stand proud, claiming her right not only to her land but to her voice. With every step she took on the ranch, she decided to embody that change, stepping beyond society's expectations with an unwavering defiance. It became clear she would not quietly play the role expected of her. Determined to forge a path where power dynamics would be challenged, she gathered allies, misfits who understood life's hardships and recognized the necessity of rebellion against both the law and social norms. As they prepared for battle against Silas Crane and his cohorts, Delilah knew they were fighting not just for a piece of land, but for justice and recognition in a world that had long denied them both. With the dawn breaking over Copper Bend, Delilah Ward stood tall in front of her father's old gun belt, a symbol of the resilience and bravery he had instilled in her. The leather was worn but sturdy, just like the lessons he had imparted: courage, integrity, and the will to fight for what was rightfully hers. As she fastened the belt around her waist, it felt as if she were not only donning an accessory, but also embracing the spirit of her father. This act was not merely about readiness. It was a declaration of war against the injustices that threatened to unravel her legacy. Each loop of the belt tightened her resolve, igniting a fire within her that had been smoldering since his passing. She envisioned every challenge ahead. Silas Crane and his band of land barons would soon learn that Delilah Ward would not be easily intimidated or silenced. The weight of her inheritance transformed into a weight of responsibility, one she was determined to bear fiercely. Gathering her team of misfit outcasts felt almost ceremonial. They all carried their own battles etched into their faces. Each person had a story of struggle, and together they formed an unbreakable bond forged in shared purpose. As Delilah looked at them, she felt a swell of hope. She realized they were not just allies, they were kindred spirits united against a common enemy. Determined to protect her home, Delilah took a deep breath, ready to face the storm gathering on the horizon. The ranch stood as a fortress, not just against physical attacks, but against the societal norms that sought to dictate her worth. With every heartbeat echoing her father's legacy, she marched forward, prepared to reclaim not only her land, but also her identity in defiance of a world that deemed her lesser. Delilah knew that to stand a chance against the land barons, she would need more than just her father's gun belt. She would need a team. So she set out into the dusty streets of Copper Bend, determined to recruit a diverse group of misfits, individuals who had been overlooked or marginalized by society but possessed skills that could turn the tide in her favor. Her first stop was the tavern, where whispers of despair mingled with laughter. There she found Hank, a burly blacksmith with a heart of gold. His hands were calloused from years of labor, and his booming laughter hid layers of sorrow from past failures. Delilah approached him with conviction, explaining her mission and the need for his strength and craftsmanship. Hank agreed without hesitation, eager to channel his skills into something greater than himself. Next, she sought out Lucy, a sharpshooter known for her unmatched aim but shunned due to her unconventional lifestyle. In an abandoned barn on the outskirts of town, Delilah found Lucy practicing her shots. The two women quickly bonded over shared experiences of defiance against societal norms. Lucy's fierce independence and sharp wit made her an invaluable asset to Delilah's cause. Then came Diego, an agile young man with unparalleled stealth skills honed from years living on the streets. He had evaded capture by both lawmen and barons alike. With his street smarts and quick reflexes, he brought a unique perspective to their plans. As Delilah gathered each member, friendships began to blossom among them, a camaraderie forged in purpose and understanding. They weren't just individuals fighting for survival, they were allies united by loyalty and shared struggles against an unjust world. With this eclectic team assembled, Delilah felt a renewed sense of hope surge through her veins as they prepared to turn her ranch into a formidable fortress against the impending storm. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Delilah and her team set to work transforming the ranch into a fortress. Under Delilah's leadership, they laid out a strategic plan that utilized each member's unique skills, fostering a sense of camaraderie and shared purpose among them. Hank took charge of reinforcing the barn, using his blacksmithing expertise to create makeshift barricades and sharpened stakes to deter any intruders. With every swing of his hammer, he infused their surroundings with strength and determination. Lucy scoured the perimeter with keen eyes, identifying vantage points where she could set up her shooting positions, each spot selected for maximum visibility and cover. Meanwhile, Diego moved stealthily around the ranch, gathering supplies and scouting potential weaknesses. He was adept at finding hidden pathways and escape routes that would be vital should they need to retreat. His agility allowed him to climb trees and obtain a better view of their surroundings, ensuring no approaching threat went unnoticed. As they worked side by side, laughter mingled with labor, infusing the air with hope despite the growing tension. Delilah felt their bond strengthen with every task completed. They were becoming more than just allies, they were family forged in adversity. To boost morale further, Delilah organized brief strategy sessions where they shared fears and aspirations, turning vulnerability into unity. They discussed how they would respond to different scenarios, attacks from Silas's men or legal maneuvers from his lawyers. This exchange not only honed their tactical responses but deepened their trust in one another. As dusk settled over Copper Bend, the ranch stood fortified and ready. Each nail hammered down was a testament to their resilience, and each barricade erected was a promise that together they would defend what was rightfully theirs against any force that dared threaten it. Delilah felt a surge of pride. They were no longer just defending land, they were fighting for dignity and justice against an unjust world. The morning sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the fortified ranch as tension crackled in the air. Delilah and her team took their positions, hearts pounding with a mix of fear and fierce determination. They had prepared as best they could, but nothing could truly ready them for the first confrontation with Silas Crane's hired guns. As the Baron's men approached, a ragtag group of ruthless mercenaries, Delilah felt her heart race. The sight of them sent a chill down her spine, but she quickly shook off the fear. "Stay sharp, remember your positions," she called out, her voice steady despite the anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. Lucy perched atop a makeshift lookout, her rifle aimed downwards at the approaching men. Hank stood near the barn, ready to defend their ground with iron tools turned weapons. Diego flitted between cover, scouting for any sign of trouble. As the thugs advanced, Delilah spotted Silas himself among them, his presence radiating arrogance. With a deep breath, she stepped forward into view. "You'll not take this land without a fight," she shouted, her voice ringing across the dusty expanse. Surprised by her boldness, the barons paused momentarily, allowing Delilah to seize the moment. Without hesitation, she signaled Lucy. The crack of gunfire split the air as Lucy pulled the trigger, hitting one of Silas's men squarely in the arm. Chaos erupted in an instant. It was a flurry of shouting and gunfire. Delilah ducked behind a barricade, adrenaline coursing through her veins as she formulated quick strategies on the fly. "Flank left, Hank, back me up," Delilah called out, her bravery and quick thinking rallying her comrades. The makeshift army moved with newfound purpose, united under Delilah's leadership as they fought back fiercely against the threat encroaching on their home. With each maneuver and every shot fired, they proved their mettle, reaffirming their shared commitment to protect what was rightfully theirs. In the days following the initial confrontation, Delilah's struggle took on a new dimension as the land barons escalated their tactics. With Silas Crane leveraging his wealth and influence, he brought in a team of lawyers skilled in intimidation and manipulation. They filed a barrage of legal challenges against Delilah's claim to her ranch, exploiting every loophole in the outdated laws that held women like her at a disadvantage. Recognizing that brute force would not be enough, Delilah turned her attention to studying the law herself. Under the dim light of the barn, she gathered her team around an old wooden table strewn with dusty legal documents. We need to become experts on these laws, she said, determination etched across her face. They think they can outsmart us with fancy words and threats, but we'll find our own way to fight back. With each page they flipped, Delilah began to uncover nuances in the language that could work to her advantage. They discovered that while women might have been barred from owning property without a husband, there were provisions for inheritance disputes that could be navigated. Delilah also learned about countersuits, mechanisms they could use to challenge Silas's claims. As they plotted their legal strategy, Delilah found herself growing closer to her allies. Hank used his skills to forge essential documents and evidence that would support her case. Lucy tracked down witnesses willing to affirm Delilah's rightful ownership, despite their fears of reprisal from the barons. Meanwhile, Diego utilized his street smarts to gather intel on Silas's legal actions. This newfound approach bolstered Delilah's confidence. They would fight not just with guns but with intelligence. Each day brought fresh challenges, but with every strategic move made, they felt empowered, not only seeking justice or survival but claiming their rightful place against those who sought to oppress them. Their miniature war had now extended into the courtroom, where cleverness and resolve were just as vital as courage in battle. As Delilah and her team fortified their defenses and prepared for the legal battle ahead, Silas Crane and the land barons escalated their hostilities, resorting to sabotage in an attempt to reclaim control of the ranch. Under the cover of night, several of Silas's men crept onto the property, aiming to damage Delilah's carefully constructed barricades and disrupt their operations. One evening, as Delilah and her team gathered around a map to discuss their next legal moves, they were jolted by a sudden crash. Rushing outside, they found a section of the barn had been smashed, its doors splintered and exposed. Diego darted into the shadows to pursue the fleeing figures while Lucy quickly assessed the damages. Frustration bubbled within Delilah as she witnessed their hard work undermined by cowardly tactics. "Let's not let them get us down," she encouraged her team after surveying the scene. "We know they will use every dirty trick in the book. We just need to outsmart them." Despite being rattled by this attack, Delilah felt a surge of determination. Rather than merely reinforcing physical barriers, she began employing strategic traps around the ranch, hidden snares that could slow down intruders without direct confrontation. Hank helped craft these ingenious devices using scraps from past projects, combining practicality with creativity. Meanwhile, Silas ramped up his legal maneuvers as well. His lawyers sent letters filled with intimidation tactics threatening lawsuits against anyone who dared support Delilah publicly. They spread rumors designed to sow doubt among neighbors about her capability to run the ranch alone. As tensions mounted on all fronts, it became clear that both sides were willing to go to extreme lengths for control over Copper Bend. For Delilah, each act of sabotage only crystallized her resolve. She would fight back with ingenuity and resilience on multiple levels, a true testament that courage was not limited to physical confrontation alone, but also extended into wits and strategy under fire. Amid the growing tension and escalating conflict, Delilah found herself grappling with moments of doubt that threatened to undermine her resolve. Late one night, while the rest of her team rested, she sat alone on the porch, the moonlight casting a silver glow across the ranch. As she stared into the vast expanse of the land that had once been her father's pride, fear crept in like a thief in the dark. What if she wasn't enough? What if all her efforts led to failure? The weight of her responsibilities pressed down heavily on her shoulders. She recalled her father's unwavering belief in her abilities, but self-doubt whispered insidiously, reminding her of the societal norms that dictated women were incapable of managing property or standing up to powerful men. What if Silas is right, she thought, clenching her fists. The thought sent chills through her, igniting a battle of emotions within her heart. In those moments of vulnerability, Delilah felt isolated, battling against not just external forces but also the creeping insecurities that plagued her mind. Tears threatened to spill as she thought about what losing the ranch would mean, not just for her but for the legacy of her father and the dreams they shared. Yet deep within that turmoil lay a flicker of determination. She knew she couldn't afford to succumb to despair. It was this very fear that fueled her spirit, reminding her that every moment of doubt was a step toward resilience. Taking a deep breath, she resolved to channel these feelings into action. If she faltered, her entire community would feel the impact. As the dawn began to break, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Delilah felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would not only fight for herself but for everyone who believed in her, and that was more than enough to keep her moving forward. As the conflict escalated, pivotal moments began to shape the trajectory of Delilah's fight for her ranch. During a tense standoff at the edge of her property, Silas and his men attempted to intimidate her with their numbers and bravado. In that moment, Delilah felt a surge of despair, but she quickly pushed those feelings aside when she noticed a small group of local townsfolk, people who once revered her father, watching from a distance. Their concerned faces lit a flame within her. She realized that her fight went beyond personal stakes. It symbolized hope for everyone around her. Determined to shift the momentum, Delilah called upon Hank and Lucy, formulating a plan that blended their strengths. As Silas's men advanced, Delilah took a deep breath and stepped forward, invoking an impromptu rallying speech filled with conviction and authenticity. This land is more than just earth and sky, it's our history. We are all here for our future. Her powerful words resonated with those nearby. Soon they found their voices, echoing her sentiments in unified support. With the crowd emboldened by her courage, they started hurling rocks and shouting obscenities at Silas's men. Caught off guard by their unexpected defense, the barons hesitated for just long enough for Delilah to spring into action. She gave Lucy the signal, and precise shots rang out, causing panic among their adversaries as they realized they were no longer just facing a small group of determined defenders but an entire community united against them. That moment was transformative. The tide began to turn in their favor. Fueled by adrenaline and a shared purpose, Delilah's team pushed back fiercely, proving their commitment not only to the ranch but to each other. With every small victory that day, Delilah found extraordinary courage within herself, a realization that resonated deep within her spirit. They were not fighting merely to defend land, they were reclaiming lives intertwined with dreams and aspirations worth fighting for. The sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty expanse of Copper Bend as the final confrontation loomed. Delilah stood at the front lines of her ranch, surrounded by her loyal allies, each sense heightened by the palpable tension in the air. Across the field, Silas Crane and his men approached, a formidable force intent on reclaiming what they believed was rightfully theirs. The stakes could not have been higher. For Delilah, this battle meant not only protecting her father's legacy but also fighting against a deeply ingrained injustice. Their eyes locked momentarily across the distance. Delilah felt a mixture of dread and determination swell within her. We must hold fast. She shouted to her companions, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. She knew their strength lay not just in arms but in unity and conviction. With every heartbeat echoing through her chest, she recalled stories of resilience shared by her father and found comfort in his teachings. As they took their positions, Lucy adjusted herself in the lookout tower, her rifle steady on the advancing figures. Hank prepared to bolster weaker points in their defenses with makeshift barriers. Diego scouted ahead, his sharp instincts keenly attuned to their enemies' movements. Just as Silas commanded his men to charge forward, Delilah raised her rifle and fired into the air, not as an attack but as a signal for their united front. In that moment, adrenaline surged. They surged forward together as one force against Silas's mercenaries pouring onto their land. The clash that ensued was fierce and chaotic, filled with shouts and gunfire that echoed across the vast plains. It tested their resolve against all odds. Each advance met with setbacks but also moments of triumph as Delilah's bravery ignited the spirit of resistance among those around her. In this storm of chaos and fury, it became clear. They weren't just fighting against land barons. They were battling for their dignity, autonomy, and future as members of a fiercely determined community ready to reclaim their rightful place under the sun. As the dust settled from the confrontation, the aftermath bore both victory and scars. Delilah stood amidst a weary yet resolute group of allies, their faces marked by exhaustion but illuminated by a shared sense of triumph. They had faced down Silas Crane and his men, driving them back from her ranch and reclaiming their sense of ownership over more than just land. It was their future, their dignity on the line. In the days that followed, Copper Bend began to change. With news of Delilah's courage spreading throughout the town, more community members rallied around her cause. Those once hesitant to challenge the status quo now felt empowered by her resolve. Townsfolk brought supplies and reinforced defenses alongside Delilah, turning her once isolated battle into a community movement. The ranch transformed symbolically and physically, a sanctuary against oppression where people united their strengths toward a common goal. But the resolution was not without consequences. Silas, although beaten back for now, was not easily dismissed. His retaliation came in the form of legal challenges and attempts to undermine the community effort through insidious tactics. Determined to uphold her victory, Delilah realized that the fight had merely shifted from physical confrontation to a struggle for legal rights and recognition of women's capabilities. Delilah embraced this challenge with vigor, rallying her allies once again to prepare for what lay ahead. They began forming strategies not just for defense, but for reclaiming the narrative around property ownership and women's rights in Copper Bend. Fueled by newfound camaraderie and purpose, Delilah led initiatives aimed at educating others about their rights, ensuring that the walls they built were not only physical, but also fortified with knowledge and resilience. Delilah's journey had evolved. She was no longer just defending her family's legacy but becoming a beacon of hope for women in her community, a fierce warrior championing justice who sparked change in a world desperate for equality. The fight was far from over, but with each step forward she was crafting a legacy all her own, one that would echo long after the dust had settled. In the quiet moments following the tumult of battle, Delilah took a step back to reflect on her transformative journey. Standing on the porch of her ranch, she gazed out at the land that had become a symbol of resilience and empowerment, not just for herself but for the entire community of Copper Bend. The scars from the conflict remained visible, yet they represented not defeat but a hard-earned victory, a testament to courage and unity. Delilah's heart swelled with pride as she thought about how far she had come since inheriting the ranch from her father. The weight of societal norms that had once threatened to suffocate her spirit now fueled her drive to redefine what it meant to be a woman in this world. No longer just a caretaker of her family's legacy, she had become a leader, challenging outdated beliefs and inspiring others to stand up for their rights. The road ahead was still fraught with challenges. Silas's legal maneuvers loomed large, but Delilah felt an unwavering resolve surge within her. The support from her allies, Hank, Lucy, Diego, and many others, had transformed her fight into a movement. They were no longer merely defending land, they were reclaiming their identities and asserting their rightful place in society. As she prepared to advocate for women's rights, Delilah envisioned creating programs that would educate others in Copper Bend about property ownership and personal empowerment. Each initiative would serve as another brick in the foundation of their community's strength. In that moment of reflection, Delilah understood that true ownership extended beyond land. It encompassed agency over one's life and choices. This realization invigorated her spirit. She was crafting not just a legacy for herself, but also weaving together a future where every woman could stand tall, empowered by the knowledge that they too could write their own stories against all odds. With renewed purpose lighting her path, Delilah stepped inside the ranch, ready to face whatever came next with unwavering determination.